G'day. So yesterday I gave the BREWZILLA a good clean. You can use the usual sodium bicarbonate, but it's not real good on oils and grease. The powder brewery wash, the Stellar Clean or the PBWs are much better. Or you can add some triclinium, which is sugar soap, virtually, to your sodium bicarbonate, and that'll just give it grease busting power. You can just use soap. I've heard a lot of people say don't put soap on anything you brew. Anything that's going to dissolve that grease, you need to get it done. Just rinse it well. Don't let it dry on it. It'll be fine. So when I was cleaning it, all I did was put some solution in here and gave it a good scrub. Pulled everything out, gave it a scrub. I had about 30 litres. My fermentosaurus was full of cleaning fluid. I used that same cleaning fluid, filled it up, put on the heat, heated it up a bit, let the pump run for a while just to make sure you're getting in and cleaning all the insides as well. Then a good rinse. So today I'm going to just check the levels on it, the water level markings, to see if I can use them. Even though I usually don't, I usually rely on my trusty HLT. This is a bit bigger, so I'm probably going to warm water up in here first. So I want to know the level accurately and just use the HLT for the sparge water. A note on HLTs. I was using this for a long time and I thought it was all fine. The first time I marked out my HLT, I used a bucket. I measured out, I think it was 5 litres, made a mark on the bucket, filled up my HLT, made the markings. Look, it was okay and it worked. A few months down the track, I started using the Brew, and I just noticed things weren't quite right. So I started looking into it. And I did buy this jug from a science supply store. And I thought that would mean it was accurate. In the end, it wasn't. So I measured it all up by 2 litres with the scientific jug into there, measured it all out again and matched it against my other measurings that I'd made with the bucket. Was wrong, things didn't work out. So I looked into it and I weighed water in this jug on scales. I made sure I used a couple of different scales just to make sure. And this scientific jug was a good 200ml out. Probably can't see that mark. On 2 litres. Now that makes a difference when you're talking nearly 50 litres in here. It makes a big difference, a litre or 2. So it's just something to think about. And I measured, when I did it the 3rd time, I actually weighed out 2 litres each time, even though I marked it, I weighed out to be really accurate. Now saying that, when I put it into my HLT, I only marked it with the texter, it's not a fine line. So, it's good enough as it is now. So I'm going to use that to test out how much dead space there is under the bottom of the mash pipe in here, and match it up to the fill line, 55 litres or whatever it is, just to check out and see if the levels are matching my HLT. Now you don't have to do this. You can make a rough estimate. I think people have said there's about 10 litres dead space under the mash pipe, and you're likely to get about 5 litres boil off, 4 or 5. It's something I'm going to test, but you don't really need to. You could dive into a brew straight away without testing it and just go with the flow. I'm going to test it. I'll just add, and the same goes with brewing, I'm going to test a boil with this. Make sure you put it where you want it, because you're not going to move it. It's very dangerous. I wouldn't even suggest moving the Brew full. I have sometimes, but I wouldn't suggest you do it. Starting at 47 litres. Just out of interest, I'll see how much sits under that bottom screen too. Alright, that's about it, as you can see. Maybe a little touch over. We're just under 42 and we're a touch over down there. So we'll say that's 5 litres. There's 5 litres that sits under that bottom screen. I'll put the malt pipe in. Let's see how we go now. As you can see, we're just there now. And that's the 37 mark, 35. So I've actually got 11 litres by my markings. It's right on there. You can barely see it, but it is. Might be picking up on camera. Just there. Now keep in mind, they could all be slightly different. There's a little bits of difference. There shouldn't be too much difference. But now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the malt pipe out. Even though that will take up some space, a minimal amount, and change your levels a bit. But I'm going to take that out, and so we can see the markings on the inside. And I'll probably go in 10 litre steps and just see where it matches up. I've put 15 litres in. It's a bit hard to see down there. It's probably saying it's close to 16. Now, if anyone knows how any of these sort of pots are made, it doesn't matter who they're made by. They're pressed first usually, and then rolled and welded or seamed, and they'll never ever be spot on. So keep in mind I'm using cold water, not hot water. Okay, we're at the 27 litre mark. That means I've put 20 litres in by my HLT. And we're pretty close, we're just over. We're not at 21. We're at 22 litres, so that's 25 in. And we're just over, we're over 25, nearly 26. We're still under that 26 mark. 17 litres, so it should be about 30. That's about 30 and a half. Went down to 12. I probably went a little bit under. So that's 35 and a bit. And that little bit made it to 36. So we're just, so you can see by this, it looks like it's been accurate all the way. With just that, you know, nearly a litre out, a quarter out, that's all. I just thought before I do that, you can see some of the discrepancies. That was the bucket method where I did it in 5 litre lots. And when I did it in 2 litre weighed lots, there's the 40 mark there, and the 40 mark was up there. Weirdly, it nearly came in equal at the end. But a lot of the marks were out. So to finish off, I'm just starting at 40. Now what would have been really good here, and I actually forgot to do it, if you thought about it, you could use a measuring stick, make your own. It could be wood or steel or whatever. And use it like a dipstick and measure out the markings on it if you really wanted to. It's just like a backup type thing if you can't happen to see the markings, or it's what we used to do in the old days when we used pots without markings. So we're right on that mark of 41. So we're just that litre difference. Like I went a little bit more again too. We're at the 20 litre. And we're just over the 55. What I've done now is go to the 15 gallon line. It looks like on the camera it's over, but it's not over. Or maybe it is. A little bit more ran out of the hose. But it's just on or over the 15 gallon line there. And I don't have a 19 litre marking, but as you can see, that is just about spot on between the 21 and the between the 20 and the 18. So that was originally 35 litres I got out. I went from 47 to 12, and I just went from 40 to say another 21 litres. So that's 56 litres, and that's got me to the 15 gallon mark. Now I think I could probably push this more for a boil. I mean, you're pushing it, but might just go up to the bottom of the writing. I reckon it's probably another litre. And it just, you know, lets me know. And yeah, I was right. So if I go sort of on the bottom of the writing there, we're close enough to the 18 litre mark. So as you can see, I marked mine with a texter. So even though I went to the trouble of weighing all our water out, I did. It was just a texture and by eye before I got my glasses too. But so in the end, mine was nearly a litre out, but it was consistent all the way up. Now yours might not be. Yours might be spot on. It's just one of those things in manufacture that it happens in all the units. So the main thing is that I know, I've used this HLT a bit, it might not be spot on, it might not be perfect. The BREWZILLA might be perfect, my stuff might be out, or vice versa. But the thing is, I know how much water it's holding through my system. So I can match it up to my profiles, and as long as I'm getting consistency in the end, everything's fine. I know some people like to be spot on with these things. It's a bit hard when you use so many different vessels, and it's an organic process, and your grain will absorb different amounts of water and a different heat and different elevation you are. Things measure differently wherever you are. But it's just good to go through and do it yourself. As I said, you don't need to. You can just hop in and brew, take notes, and adjust it for next time. Do that a couple of times and you'll soon find out where everything sits and the numbers that work for you. So I'm not going to fill it anymore. It's a bit silly. I am going to bring this to the boil. It's going to take a while, probably from room temp, although room temp's pretty warm in here, sweaty. It's probably about 25, or probably nearly 30 degrees today by the feel of it. And the water's not going to be much different. It's been sitting here in my HLT overnight. Well, half of it was, until I had to refill it. Let's get it to the boil. And just in case you don't know, if you're a beginner at this, cold water, they say, expands by 4% when it's heated. That's another thing to keep in mind too. When this water's heated, it's like when I fill my HLT up overnight. If I fill it up to the 47 mark cold, and then I have it on the timer to heat up overnight, when I come out, it's up to nearly 48. Or 40 and a bit, or 47 and a bit, I don't know, I haven't got a marking up there. But it's above it, so I empty that out, usually, and chuck it, or keep it for something else. And so I'm at my 47 mark when I start to mash in. As I said, with these double batches, I'm going to have to start heating the initial strike water in the BREWZILLA, which will shorten time, because usually when I heat it up in here to strike temp, and then by the time you get it into the BREWZILLA or Robo Brew, you lose heat. You put the mash pipe in, you lose heat. That's something to remember too. Anytime you put these things in, you're going to lose heat. And that's also, remember, these things take up space. If I put all these in here now, it'd go up a fair bit. As I said in my earlier videos, I did get a 15 amp plug put in. Very, very simple job, very quick. Get your mate that's a Sparky, he'll do it in 20 minutes. Don't do it yourself. Insurance, stuff like that. I did get an extension cord, a proper one. I got a 10 meter 15 amp. I probably didn't need a 10 meter. I probably could have got away with shorter. The controller settings are the same as the Robo Brew, so I've done that on video as well. And the instructions are quite good that you get from Kegland anyway. And I don't usually use the automatic modes. I like to keep an eye on things when I'm brewing. So I use it in manual. Elements, 500, 1000, 2000. Now the US version will be different size elements. Just a note while we're on the elements, it does make a difference, of course, between the boil in the US or other parts of the world and Australia. And the reason I'm mentioning it is that because in the Robo Brew, Beersmith put out they got a profile from Short Circuit. Now his was wrong for the Australian setup. So it's something to keep in mind. Your boil off will be different and things will just be different. So yeah, if you do get the one, if Beersmith, I haven't looked yet, but if Beersmith has put one out for it, it's very likely to be the American one. So you will need to adjust it or make your own one, or I'll make one up soon. It's a very easy thing to do. I'll see if I can time how long this is going to take to heat up, but it's a bit sort of pointless really, because you won't be heating your wort up from this temperature. Half an hour and we're at 55 degrees. That's pretty good. There's a lot of water to heat. We're about 80 degrees now, and you can see the water expansion. We're up above the riding. We're getting closer to boil now. But what I've decided to do, just to make it a little bit more clearer how much we're losing during the boil, because I was going to let it cool down overnight. So I measured the full cool temperature and then the cold temperature tomorrow, but I've decided I might brew tomorrow. So I won't get a very accurate reading. So what I'm going to do is just empty out now, just take out a few jugs. So I'm going to go down to the 55 litre mark. So it's a bit clearer and easier to see a boil off. once I stop the boil and look while the water's hot. Alright, we're boiling at 100. I'm just going to leave it a couple of minutes, because what usually happens when you're brewing is you have the hot break on top, and you usually sort of wait for that to clear a bit. You wait for the boil to really start getting going before you set it. We're starting to move. It's not really, doesn't look like it's picking it up very well on the camera, but we are just about there. See if we've actually gone over 100 with wort in it. Or my other ones, it does. I don't know if it will with just water in it. It shouldn't. Might go 101 or something. It's out a little bit, but we seem to be pretty spot on. That's probably enough time for the hot break to have gone and me to muck around and get the first hops ready and go, oh, where's the hop bag? It's only been about a minute since it started to boil. It's 5:44. Alright, we'll take it from 5:44. I can't see the bottom plate moving up. People said they had issues with the boil going off and the bottom plate moving up. That hasn't happened once here. So the majority of the boil's been done with just 3,000. I can adjust that when the wort's in there if I don't think it looks enough. They suggest 2,000 that it might work there, so we'll see how it goes on a real brew day, but this is just a test, and we've just hit 644. So we'll turn the elements off. I don't know if you're able to see it with all this steam. I'm trying to get in there for you. It's right, see the 50? That number you can see? It's just under it. So I boiled off just over 5 litres, we'll say. 5 litres. It's a bit hard to see. Whereas at 55, right on the 55 mark, 1 hour boil. And we're just slightly under the 50. So there's my 2 full cubes. So that's it. That's the boil test. That's about all there is to do. It was just over 5 litres. Everything went really well. The boil went well. I didn't have the problem that I've heard people say that the bottom was lifting up and flapping around. I didn't notice any of that at all. The boil was consistent through the whole boil. We're very happy so far. There's not much else to say. So with that, I'm going to get rid of this water. I'll keep it for cleaning. I was going to use it for brewing, but since it's been boiled once, that'll throw me salts out. I mean, it'll be minimal. I probably should just use it, but I think I'll save this for cleaning tomorrow. Cheers.